There are a lot of controls here in the coordinates rollout that I'd like to discuss. It's important that you understand how you can stretch the pattern to make it fit on the geometry, because every material that you design has different needs. Here I have the pattern appearing exactly one time on the surface. If I increase the tiling, I can make that pattern appear more frequently. The tile checkbox means that the pattern will be repeated according to this amount. If I uncheck tile, that means that the pattern will appear only once. But the size that the pattern appears is still governed by this number. So it's as if 3 patterns would appear in this direction, but because tile is unchecked, we're only seeing one of them. We're seeing a red color here because it's the original diffuse color of the material. I'll go up to the parent, and you can see the red color is right here. So now that we're mapping only a portion of the object, essentially when you uncheck tile, you're making a decal, or map that will appear on part of the surface. I'll increase tiling over here, and that will shrink the size of the pattern down accordingly. You can also move that pattern around on the surface by using the offset values. Mirror is just like tile, but it flips the pattern over. It's a bit hard to tell here with the checker pattern because it is symmetrical, but mirror would give you the mirror image of the pattern for each tile. Notice in the sample slot how there's a pattern of a checkerboard on the top of the cube, but the sides have these stripes. This is happening because the pattern is streaking down the sides. It's essentially only being applied on the top, and incidentally on the bottom of the cube. I'll rotate it, and you can see that here. But all the sides are just getting the streaking effect. You can choose which plane you want to texture by using these radio buttons. I'll stick with the XY plane, or top of this cube sample object. The angle parameters allow you to rotate the pattern with respect to the geometry. I can rotate it in X and or Y, and we'll start to see that pattern appear in some interesting ways on the sides. I'll set these back to 0 by right-clicking on their spinners. The most useful angle here is the Z angle because it allows you to rotate the pattern in the XY plane. And that would be more appropriate for this geometry that we're dealing with, which is just a flat plane. We can rotate the pattern in that plane. You can also rotate all 3 angles simultaneously if you click the rotate button. You get this virtual trackball, and it allows you to rotate any way you like. I'll just set these back to 0, 0, and I'll set this at 45 degrees. So we have a rotated checkerboard pattern. Now finally, there are blur controls down here, and these can be good if you have a pattern that has a seam that you kind of want to hide. Blur will work on the anti-aliasing effect. Notice that we have kind of a stair-step effect here, and that would be reduced if you increased blur. You don't see it in the viewport, but you'll see it in a rendering. Blur offset is more powerful than blur, and it blurs the entire pattern. it works with lower values, so be careful not to boost this up too high. Again, this will have an effect in the rendering. So I think that about covers it. These are the controls that you need to get comfortable with in order to control the way that a map is applied to geometry.